So the pop quiz question of the day is Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera?
I have to go with Christina Aguilera.
Christina Aguilera, Genie in a Bottle was one of my favorite songs when I was growing up, so I'm totally with you.
A lot of sass.
A lot of sass. And a powerhouse voice, too.
Yes. Well, both fabulous singers. Her sass. I like her sass. That's what I got.
Well, welcome to the Renew podcast presented by RentSpree. I'm Lauren Martin, Sales Director of the prop tech company RentSpree. This podcast is a featured offering of Renew, an initiative that aims to elevate female voices, share insight on how to navigate industry challenges, and showcase the remarkable achievements of women in real estate. In this episode, I'm excited to be talking to Denee Evans, CEO of the Council of Multiple Listing Services, CMLS. Denee has been the CEO of CMLS and has helped grow it to the premier membership organization for multiple listing services providers in North America. Prior to that, Denee was the executive director and board member at Energy Fit Nevada, where she collaborated organization on energy efficiency. Denee's other experiences include working in the residential lending space at Bank of America and Wells Fargo. Denee has a degree in real estate and finance from the University of Nevada. We'll be discussing Denee's professional real estate journey, as well as the importance of female mentorship and empowerment within the real estate industry. Denee, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here and talk about something that I am extremely passionate about. And so I'm looking forward to a great discussion.
Yeah, me too. And you have such an impressive background and so much experience to talk about. So really, to just get us started, I would love for you to tell us kind of your journey to the top of the real estate industry and how you got there.
Well, I'll start by saying it was not the one I had mapped out. So we'll start there, of being open to change. I actually started as a teller and at Bank of America. And I've always really enjoyed working math and numbers and finance specifically. So from there, I always say I grew up in the corporate world, working for Bank of America, the Wells Fargo, as an American Express, a lot of those things, but always about helping people, and specifically around money and finance, because people were they still are very hesitant to talk about it, very uncomfortable. It's not a course you typically take in high school. So my passion was always to educate them on how to, as I tell my girls, how do you help money work for you? You don't just work for money. So it was kind of a philosophy I had taken, and that path really, I felt my passion really came out when it came to homes and housing. And so when I was in the banking side, helping people to save up for it, build the credit for it, understand what it took to get there. And so really honing in on, I so enjoyed helping people get in a home, right? Get that environment. So that led me through, I did 10 years in mortgage lending. So helping to actually get the deal done. And then from there, I made the jump and ended up managing a nonprofit 501c3 that you mentioned, Energy Fit, which I had no idea about or involvement before.
That's awesome.
But that, and then from there, I met someone who was involved at an MLS, because what we're trying to do is get involved with the MLS, and that landed me here almost 9 years ago. And like I said, never the path, but really refining what it was that I found joy in, or I was passionate about, and kind of putting that out to the universe. And here's where I am today, loving what I'm doing.
I love that. I just before we started this, I was telling you, my mom actually was a loan officer for most of my life. And it's so wonderful to hear you say that, because that's kind of where her passion was, especially new first-time home buyers, and like kids getting out of college who are, I live in DC, and they're dumping tons and tons of money into these expensive rentals, mostly because they didn't know that they had the ability to purchase, and they didn't know what it took to purchase a home. So I love to hear that that's one of your passions, because it is, right? We all need to have a home, and it seems like you love finding people's homes one way or another.
Just educating them on money. I think it's always been people are just uncomfortable with it, as I mentioned. And so making them feel comfortable with it and educated and informed, and making the decisions that support achieving what maybe they thought they couldn't before, but how to bring that into perspective. So
yeah, and I think that's so important to talk about, just talking about money, because a lot of the times I feel like we've been, ingrained to believe we shouldn't talk about it, right? Like we don't talk about our salary, we don't talk about how much we make versus another person, or how much money somebody has. And if we don't talk about it and there's not a conversation, we don't have people like you who help people understand what they can and can't do.
And I think that's the important part right there, is getting people to understand what they can do with it, what's available to them, how can it work for them. So I love the conversation, and that sort of passion to educate people on it is the question you asked me to start with was, how did I get here? And it's just that passion to help and educate people.
I've got goosebumps. That's awesome. What stands out as some of the keys to success along the way?
One, I think it is about everybody says find your passion and do that, but I think it's kind of hard to just find that in the beginning. So it's along the way, each part, just sort of checking in with yourself to say, what about this brings me joy? Like there was definitely some parts when I was a loan officer that I was like, I don't like this piece of it. I like doing this. And so to really work to get clearer and clearer about what it is that brings you joy, what you're passionate about, what you're good at too. Like you want to bring that in there. So I think one of the stories I had was I was interviewing to go back to Bank of America. I had left, but I was moving back to the city and was interviewing. And so I went in, and the gentleman interviewing, I feel bad for him now looking back, but he kept saying, well, how did you make that happen? What did you do to build a successful branch or to meet your sales goals? And I'm like, I don't know. I just do that. Like it was just like, you just set a goal and you reached it. But I'd never really stopped to think about what it was that I was good at or passionate about that allowed me to be able to do that. I couldn't articulate it. Yeah. And he was getting so frustrated with me in the interview, trying to ask questions. I'm like, I don't know. I do it. So it really was a point for me to stop and start to articulate what it was that I was good at, what I was passionate about, which then helps me better navigate what my path might be. I still had to be open to it. And like, I just would put it out. And as I believe the universe, you put it out to the universe, it brings it back to you. Yeah. And, but getting really clear and passionate, very clear on what I was good at. And then also what brought me joy and I had passion to do, helps keep that path a little clearer of what you want to say yes to and what you want to say no to.
And I think that I wish I could go back and like say those exact words to a younger version of myself, because what you said is such an important lesson. We all have strengths, and it's just how do we articulate that? And so I think that's such a great story, because you're like, I just do it. Like, I don't know. You set me a goal and I hit the goal, and that's just what I do. And I feel like you're successful because you took all of those skills and you really honed in on, okay, well, how can I take everything that I did to hit this and apply it somewhere else? Especially young women who are trying to get into the workforce and interviewing, being the best advocate for yourself is so important.
Totally agree with that. And I think the other side of it is also become very aware of what you're not great at. So I was in a course, it's actually CMLS 3, the class that CMLS puts on for our leadership development, he called it consciously competent. So really, no, it was a little quadrant, right? Mm-hmm. Consciously competent about what you're really good at. Because you could be really competent at something, but not aware that you're good at it. And
Yeah.
that's not great. So when you can really identify and be consciously competent at what you're excellent at, but the flip side is you could be unconsciously incompetent at something.
Yeah.
So you want to know what you're not great at or what you just don't like doing, because when you're spending time in that space or that quadrant, which I'm going down here, because of the way that the little Foursquare diagram was, I think that's just as important. And it's okay to not be good at something. Like,
Sure.
call it out and just own it and be, I am not a great writer. I own that. In the interview for this job, actually, as part of it, they were asking me, and I knew it involved a lot, but I realized I wasn't great at it. So I just learned to hire someone to help me write things. Like, it's my stuff I would give to them, and they would come in, and I fessed to it during the interview, because like, it's going to be really uncomfortable if we get in there. They're expecting me to do this, and it's just not my strength.
Yeah.
But here is what my strength. So I still got the job, and I'm just aware of it. So I get really amazing people to work with who can fill that piece for me, because it's not my super strength.
It's so funny that I'm like laughing in my head, because when I first took the job at RentSpree, I was interviewing with Michael Lucarelli, our CEO, and I had gotten through like 5 interviews, and he asked me if I was good at analyzing data. I'm like, well, what does that mean? That could mean so much. And the answer is no, I'm not great at data. So I told him, I was like, look, I've got to just be honest with you. Like, no, I'm not good at that. And I was talking to my dad one night, and he was like, well, why did you tell them that? Like, you could have just like fluffed it up a little bit. I was like, my biggest nightmare is I get in and they're like, analyze all these spreadsheets, and then I'm really just like in a predicament. So I think that that's really good advice, is like, it's okay to have like shortcomings and to have things that you're not good at, because like you said, you'll find people who can, we all make a picture, right? We all kind of fill in those gaps.
And I think it's important not to just, I can't do it, and so I like, don't discount yourself. I think that's some other advice I would give to women, is just because you can't do that piece doesn't mean you're not the right person for that job.
Right.
But so you can still say, but here's everything else I can bring. And I know I need to bring this expertise, because really finding somebody who's good at everything that's not real, right? That everybody has their shortcomings. So for sure, do not dismiss yourself or discount that you are not equipped to do that job. You can be honest, you can be, transparent about it. But don't automatically dismiss yourself. Let them do it, but talk about all the other ways that like your super strengths come in to be awesome at that role.
Yeah, I think that that's so important. Well, speaking of that, those are a lot of your successes, which I think are great successes. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind as like a huge challenge that you faced on this journey?
I think one of the things, age always came up. If I was too young, whether I was qualified, and that was one of my challenges, is just because I was young, I was discounted a little bit. So I don't know how you like jump over that, but I felt like I didn't let it. So I was told once that I actually didn't get a branch manager position because I was too young. Those were the words. And there is no like discrimination laws about being too young for anything.
What do you say to that? Sorry, I'll be older. I mean, what are you supposed to say?
There's no really overcoming it. I think today, looking back, I think I would have had a different response to it. I was super, I just always had set goals, and it was like, what was the next thing? So I think I was so taken back by that one. But besides just age, young, and really being, and I would imagine a lot of people, listening to this are like wanting to learn and mentor. Don't let that, don't let that set you back. Obviously, I got told that, and I got an even better job the next, I think it was just a few months later, that I always say it works out the way that it's supposed to. So I'll give credit to where that was, but it did come up regularly. Or I would get a job as a manager, and I would have people older than me that I would be managing. And so that I would have to work a little bit different maybe. So I would say, if anything, just being young and successful, cause some challenges, but just building that trust and relationship with others. And I had said the word mentor before. I think very much something that's attached to being a mentor is like somebody older than me or somebody more experienced. Yeah. But I think my experience and or age does not matter in building a group of mentors for you. Yeah. It's probably better to have some people younger, some people older, some people, same age, can really be beneficial.
Yeah, because we're all going through different points of our life, right? We all experience things at different moments in our life. And something that somebody told me a long time ago that's always stuck with me is you never know what somebody's going through, no matter the age, the gender. So like you said, filling yourself with a circle of people who, none of that really matters. You still can learn a lot of lessons from them. And it's funny that you bring up the age, because that happens to me all the time. And, some of my female colleagues over the years, and it's just so inspiring to see how you overcame that. And I'm sure there's a level of self-confidence that you had to find in yourself to be like, yeah, I'm young, but that doesn't mean that I can't do the job better than the next person.
Exactly. I think it really does go to your mindset. And it's just there's this confidence. You think of the two little people sitting on your shoulder or whatever. And we all have that one that's just questioning us a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, can I really? But just as strong, you got to work on the one on the other shoulder. There's like, you can do this. It's, you got this. You are as qualified, if not more so, so you might be a little bit younger. Your passion could outweigh the other thing. So just make sure you get both going, right? We all have them. I question myself all the time, but it's when that one starts winning versus you're balancing it out with the one that's cheering you on. Yeah. As well is super important.
Yeah, it's a check and balance system, right? Like you got to humble yourself sometimes too, but
reflect.
Is key. Yeah, exactly. Self-reflection, I think, is so important. When I was getting started, I was like, oh, I can do all of this, no problem. And I quickly came to realize, oh my gosh, I can do none of this.
But you can learn, right? Like you can learn. The other big thing to that, I think, is to ask for help. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes I know I struggle with that is I can't do it, but I need a little help. I need somebody to fill in this piece for me. Let me ask you more about that. So being willing to voice when you do need some help or some more information, or just your willingness to learn and take information in goes a long way.
I think too, just going off of that, just feeding off the energy and the positivity around with the people around you. You said earlier, like put good into the universe and you'll get good back. I think that really goes to this, right? And being able to learn. This is my 4th podcast ever. And I was so nervous to get on the call with you and, everyone so far. And then you just feed off the positivity around you and you grow so quickly because you're opening up to the others around you. And I think that, that's why I'm so excited to have you here. I think just alone, your stories are going to help so many people.
I sold Mary Kay back when I was like 20 years old or 21 or something. I'd used the product. And so I was selling it, and they would have meetings every couple of weeks or something. And you'd go with the others, and there was a team leader. And I remember her saying, so something I took in, and it was 19 or 20 years old. And she said, you got to make your list of people you engage with, A, B, C's, and D's. She went through A's most important. They're the ones that give you the energy. They're cheering you up, and you just want to spend time. B's were like, yeah, they're like good for you. You want to check in with them so often. I don't remember what C's, but what really resonated with me and stuck was the D's. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that drain your energy. They're not cheering you on. They're not supporting you. And D's are delete. So always saying, do I need to delete this person from my life because they are not adding to that energy and that place I want to be in the world. So sometimes in my head, I'll be like, is this a D situation?
Delete.
Do I need to delete?
That's so funny. That's like that Netflix show where you hold it up. Does it bring you joy? Yes or no? Okay, delete.
exactly. But
That's
in
awesome.
the regards to people and who you surround with, and um, I will say, so something I just did during the pandemic, I know we all went through just such a challenging time, but I really found myself in a space of like, I need a support group right now, from being mom, wife, sister, running the company, trying to support my team, the industry, all this stuff. It was just my own version of saying, I need help.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to a few colleagues from, I think, what you were saying, like all different areas of the industry. So just some people that I knew all in the space. I was like, I need somewhere to just go and like talk through some things, because I just need that support. I need that help right now. And so we did this little group. There's 5 of us in it. We still meet once a month and just talk through. It can be family, it can be work, it can be I'm struggling myself with whatever it might be as an individual, and it has just
Mhm.
been absolute gold for me.
Yeah.
To just work through. But it was like that lesson learned. I had to ask for the help. I needed it. I knew I was struggling. That was a little weird conversation, but everybody was excited. And it has just turned out to be one of the most amazing, and something that time does not get missed. It does
Yeah.
not get missed. I've got to have it.
I think that
Good
that
for my soul.
Yeah, we all need that. That's good for your soul. And you probably had to ask for the help, but I'm sure when you did, the people on the other end of the phone needed it just as much as you. And they were probably so relieved because, especially through COVID, we've been kind of lacking that personal connection. And I don't know about you, but when I was like locked in my house by myself, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm used to like being in front of people all the time. Who can I talk to? What can I do? So I'm sure it's just such a release to have kind of a support structure where they're just outside people you can share your feelings and your thoughts to, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's been I call it little food for my soul.
I love that. Well, okay, so my next question for you is I read that you are a youth sports parent and a coach. And I know that, there's a lot that goes into that and you're constantly motivating people. So if you had to give a message to the next generation of women, what would it be?
So I do say that maybe my next adventure, my job when I grow up, might be in coaching. I love basketball, so I'm super passionate about that. And I have coached my daughter's teams as she was younger up until now. And I think it's the same message I would tell them of um, you, you do still have to set your goals. They're your goals, and putting towards them and pushing past what you may be comfortable with at times, or pushing past what you think your skill level is at times. If you're trying some new move, or you're dribbling with your left hand versus you're normally dribbling with your right, you have to try that and get uncomfortable, and you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
But we still try it. We still do it. We still have to um, uh, work through the uncomfortable to get to the comfortable side. And then even when you get there, you're going to have uncomfortable again, right? Because we're always learning and growing. And so it's the confidence in yourself to be able to do that, to know and embrace that you will fail and you will get it wrong, but you will get through to the other side. Or you might even just decide, hey, you know what? I don't like this. I really dislike playing basketball.
Yeah.
And that isn't okay, because that's still a win, right?
Yeah.
You tried it and you found out of what it is that you do or don't like. But to not see that as failure, for sure, to see that as I tried, I pushed, and I've decided it's not for me.
Yeah. So many things you're saying are just like bringing back memories in my head. But when I was a kid, my parents put me in karate, and I was like, this is really weird, Mom. I look weird. Like, I don't know about this. I'm unsure. But she's like, well, it's going to be just, you're going to feel weird doing it, but just like push past it. And I was uncomfortable. And then I like got all the moves down, they like make a move and yell. And I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. It's like ballet, but you're just screaming, right? And then you got to the part where you had to like spar with somebody. And I was such a little kid at the time, like just very small, and I just got annihilated. And the like other girl like flipped me upside down and like smacked me against the mat. And I was like, okay, well, I tried, and I found out it's not for me. But I wouldn't know unless I had gotten to that point. So, and then I got rid of that, and I became a figure skater, and that was just so much. I was good at the like alone sport, but I really love that story, because I think that, to your point about your kids, like you have to keep trying. And if you find out that it's not for you, that's okay too.
Exactly. I actually just had this conversation with my sister. She's struggling about trying something new or going into this new adventure. And she's like, well, what if I fail? I'm like, okay, well, first of all, let's talk about what is even failure? Like, what would it take? And really describe to me what failure looks like for you in this, because shy of like, I don't know, you get arrested and like, I can't even think of what is actual failure in this.
Right.
So one, let's embrace that. But two, I bought a little sign that hangs in my daughter's room that said, failure is just ideas that needed a few more tries.
Oh.
Right. Like it has to be part of what we do, and it has to be okay to be like, yeah, I didn't quite get that one right. Or like, there was some lessons to be learned on that one. We'll try it again.
Yeah.
And just this idea that failure is actually a success, because as long as you're learning from it, some of them might take you down for a little bit, really kind of like have an effect on your confidence in it, but there's always something to be learned.
Yeah.
And it's that you get back up and you give it a try, or you decide karate's not for me.
Yeah.
Right. That's okay. That's still progress and success.
Right. Yeah. Just eliminating, the D-list activities. Does it bring me joy? Nope, it's out. But I think that that's so important, and you probably have had this conversation with your daughters too, but as a woman, a lot of the times we're really afraid of failure. And are people like, like you said, what is failure? Because a lot of the times how I view failure for myself is what would people think of me? And that's not really failure, right? That's like them judging me. But to me, if I've failed in other people's eyes, then I've failed. And it took a lot of rewiring my brain to say, okay, well, I need to fail on my own terms and not be worried about, what he says or what they say. So is that something that you've kind of talked to your daughters about, is, just embrace this failure?
Yes, but I think a really powerful exercise is to say, what is failure? And so when you say failure on your terms, but like, really, what is the ultimate definition of failing at something?
Yeah.
Right? Because, in your job, just what you do on a day, like what is true failure of that versus you're always learning, you're always growing, you're getting feedback, I would hope we try to get better each day.
Yeah.
But really like it, and that's what I asked my sister. I was like, okay, well, can you give me the description of when would you classify me as failing? Where's your description of my failure? And that's where I think we can really do ourselves a great favor, is to have sort of that group I told you that I have of going to ask them, what does failure look like this? Or I'll even share what might be my fear of failure. And they're like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like that doesn't even make sense or could actually happen. And so I'm creating this craziness and they're just gut checking me on it. So I think when you can go ask someone else, what might be your version of failure for me in this, you get a little reality check for yourself, because we can be so hard on ourselves. But my sister wasn't, she was giving me back that it was sort of a ridiculous ask, that I'm saying, okay, well, tell me how I'm a failure, and helped give some perspective to her that she had more fear about failure than what was actually probably even possible in the adventure she was going on.
Yeah. And like you said, like you have fears of how you're a failure, and she probably like would never think those things of you. So I really like that. That's just kind of a reality check. And it reminds me of, I don't know if you're a Matthew McConaughey fan, but he gave this one speech at the Oscars that always stuck with me. But he talks about, who's your hero? And well, my hero's in 10 years. Okay. Fast forward 10 years. Who's your hero? No, my hero's 20 years from now. I'm never going to catch up. I'm never going to be that person, but it gives me somebody to strive for. And that's kind of the same thing that you're saying is we're always going to grow and set goals and expectations and know that, once you hit that, there's another 10 years that you're going to continue to grow.
Exactly. And the one thing I've been really talking with my team about recently is it's a learning mindset.
Yeah.
We just are always learning. So it's not a failure. It's not mistakes. It's just learning. And as long as we're learning from it, and sometimes they sting, right? Sometimes it doesn't make us feel great. Those learning moments of like, I'm in a board meeting and I'm getting some feedback that's like, darn it, I really missed the mark on that one. But what did I learn? How do I do better next time? And just really willing and able to take in that feedback and those lessons so that I can do better next time. And so there's just that sort of perspective of, all right, we learned something here. Okay, now let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So, and how do we apply that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, okay. So as you know, Renew was an initiative to help foster a sense of community for women that work in all areas of the industry. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear just kind of how you have valued female mentorship throughout your career.
I think mentoring, as I mentioned earlier, it's not just even by age or by gender. I think it is really important to have sort of a mix of all of them. And I've had both. I really have. I can think of some people, my list is made up of both. I think having a strong support of women mentors, and like I said, it can be somebody younger, it can be somebody older, it can be somebody in a different vertical or a different department. It just goes back to that learning mindset, somebody who is willing, one, to be honest with you. I think that's the greatest thing I've had from the mentors, and they'll tell me real, they'll tell me like it is. And seeking to build those friendships, those relationships, whatever they might look like, and make time for them, and never being afraid. I think that's maybe one of my, if I said where I'm really good at, I've never been afraid to just go talk to someone.
Yeah.
And because I want to know more about them. I want to understand what makes them tick. Why are they, why or how are they doing that? And just constantly sort of broadening my perspective of the world by meeting new and different people. And so I think that's where sort of my development of my list of mentors and supporters and I'd call them cheerleaders even. But they're willing to tell me the truth. Don't just find people that are only saying nice things. Sometimes you got to hear the rough stuff, like the gut check kind of thing too, right? So it could be diverse, but how important and more the mentor is on where are you looking to grow. So finding someone that has that space, but not being afraid to go up to them, no matter who it is. I don't know where that came from, but I'm like, it just, because people are people, right? Yeah. So just because they have a title or they do this role or that role, I like, hi, I'm Denee. I'd love to meet you. And it's really cool what you did, or I'd love to hear more about that. And I think sometimes even as females, we're probably less likely to do that.
Because you have to really put yourself out there. It's like you're the kid on the playground that's like, hey, will you be my friend? And the other kid's kind of like taken aback, like, oh yeah, I'll be your friend. Thanks for asking.
Exactly. And I think too, the weird thing is I don't think I've ever asked anyone if they would be my mentor, but I have a ginormous list of people I consider that mentored me. Yeah. So it is just building that friendships, or just saying, can I go have a drink? What's going on in your world? Like, what do you think? Or, hey, this is maybe what I'm a little challenged with. How have you handled it? So it was less like this official and more of just building these relationships with people. And I do think that supporting group, I won't discount the value of having a group of women mentors.
Yeah.
That is that group that I did create, work to create that environment through COVID. As I mentioned, it is all women, and just the the conversations, the support, the insight that they give me is different than I might get, but that doesn't, I still have my group of mentors and support that are men. So,
Yeah. It's just different
it's,
perspective.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that what you said is so valuable, especially about, finding people who are going to give you the tough feedback, because if everybody's just like, oh my gosh, it's sunshine and rainbows all the time, we're never going to grow. So actually calling out one of my best friends, Caroline, she works at RentSpree too. She's always there to give me the tough feedback. Like we'll get off a call and she'll be like, why did you say that? I'm like, oh, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have said that in the moment when it came out. And she'll like kind of walk me through like why where I messed up along the way. And then how would I know not to do it the next time if somebody wasn't there to say something? So I think we all don't want to hurt each other's feelings, but a lot of the times I think it's important to give that feedback.
You can be honest, professional, and respectful, and it's still kind, but it can be truth.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
It can be true. So, and I think, but we have to be open to it.
Yeah.
You have to be open and genuinely curious to do that. We mentioned earlier about that self-reflection. So, and that takes a lot of confidence to get that, right? When you get that feedback from your friend, you got to really just like, okay. And the result can't be you don't speak up again. You just learn. And how do you go about it a little bit better the next time? And, but to keep stepping forward and not say, oh, I won't do that again. I'll just do it better next time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of female role models, so mine growing up when I was a kid, there was a moment, everybody laughs at me. I saw the Spice Girls on TV and I'm like, this is my life. I am born and destined to bring the girl power into the world. But curious, when you were growing up, is there it doesn't have to be real estate related or anything. Is there somebody that there was a moment you can remember where you're like, I aspire to be like this?
That's a great question. I guess it can be cheesy. But what comes to mind is my mom.
Yeah.
So I'm the oldest of 6 kids. 5 of us were girls. 1 was a boy. My dad really wanted a boy, but we were never treated any different. Like I had to change the oil on the cars. We did construction work. Like there was no different. But I think a lot of that actually came not so much from my dad, but from my mom. I call her She-Ra, Princess of Power.
I love
because the woman would just be out doing anything. I mean, she's like digging trenches, and still to this day, there's nothing I have to like tell. I'm like, Mom, you should probably not be doing that now. You're not a spring chicken anymore. But there's nothing she won't or can't do. And so I just think that was probably a lot of where I got it just was never that you couldn't do something. And so She-Ra, Princess of Power. Maybe some of you have to Google that. It was a cartoon from when I was little. I don't know. It was the counter to He-Man, I think.
Does she know you call her that?
Yeah, it's Nana is what we call her. So Nana, who is She-Ra, Princess of Power, and but the counter to that is my mom is the nicest person, and I would say she would give you the shirt off her back even if she didn't have a shirt. She'd go find one to get for you. But yet it's like the most hardworking, I can do this, we'll get it done, we'll make it happen kind of person. So I guess I got to give mom credit.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, Princess of Power. That's what we should all strive to be Princess of Power. That's wonderful. So one of the last questions I have for you on female mentorship is less than 20% of all senior positions in real estate are held by women. What do you see as the reason for that imbalance?
I think, and there's studies on this too about if a female will apply for a job because if they meet so many of the criteria that they say that it is, versus needing to meet all of them.
Yeah.
And so I think that goes back to the like just that I can do it. I might not know all of it great, but if I'm only qualified in say half of the stuff that's there, but I'm really great at that half and I'm very passionate about it because you've taken the time to sit down and go, this is what I'm awesome at. And I want to go do this. understand that being good at all 100 things on that job description or whatever's on there, it's really not even
It's not feasible.
doable.
Yeah.
It's not feasible. You couldn't possibly be. So I think the idea going in and really thinking what you could bring to that with your strengths, that conscious competency that you've gone through and really started to identify, embrace, and dig into what you're good at, what you love doing, and sell that, and realize there's other people who are really great in those other areas. So go get them on your team. Go find them and bring them into that other piece, but don't think you have to do 100% of it to be awesome for that. And I think just the conversation last week with someone of somebody even offered them a spot to do something and said, oh, I don't think I'm qualified for that. Oh, how do you know? Go give it a try. Like, they thought that you were, so dig in, go give it a try. And so I think there's some piece of that to just thinking, I can do this, but it's okay that I can't do all of it. I'm not expert in all of it, but I'm smart enough to go get people to help me do those other things.
Yeah. And it's like a checklist, right? Like, you don't have to meet all of it, but if you feel like you're competent in enough, then like you said, you'll just fill in the gaps around it. And what you don't know, you'll probably learn as you go along.
Absolutely. I do have to share I really dislike the word competent. I don't really want to be competent at anything. I want to be like rock star.
Yeah.
And so it is that, like, I really think there would be so much value. I proposed this activity to a girlfriend once. She was coming back she'd been staying at home with her kids, and she was going to go back in the workforce. Like, I need to make a resume. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to do wine night. We're going to get those big 3M sticky Post-it boards. We need a bottle of wine, and we're going to do a brainstorming session of converting what it was, your skills as a stay-at-home mom, to what it might be to working, in the corporate world, as whatever the position. But I think that applies to any of us at any point. Like, bring your friends together and brainstorm, where is your superstar? What are you really great at? What do they see that from you? Because then you can start to better articulate what you do great. You can refine it. You can add to it as to what is it you like doing. And maybe there's something on there you don't like. Well, that's great clarity. And so the more we can support each other and help to refine and articulate what we're just great at, what's our superpower, as well as what we don't, and what we're maybe not, that's just as valuable to help elevate each other and how we just move forward to what's our next adventure, what's our next opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you had so many superpower moments for her that she, probably didn't even think of. And I think there's so much power to that, because a lot of the times it's the people who surround you that are going to show you all the great that you do in the world.
Absolutely. So wine night, big 3M sticky notes. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Next time I'm like trying to think of all my strengths, I know exactly who to call. That's like such a great way to do that. But Denee, I want to thank you again for agreeing to be a guest on our Renew podcast. I honestly have had such a great conversation with you. I could keep on going for hours. But before we go, I wanted to do two things. First one, any exciting things coming up at CMLS that you want to share?
Oh, I think everyone knows the industry right now is anything but calm and quiet. So there's so many exciting things going on. We are, I think one of our biggest things is when we bring the community together to talk about how we advance the industry overall. So our next event is April 13th, where we're talking, if you want to learn more about MLS or understand what's going on, we'd love to have anyone join us for that. And then our big conference is in October down in New Orleans. That one's in person. So those are our big things, but it's like coming together sort of along this concept and talking about what's the good stuff. How do we make it better? How do we support each other to advance and help make homeownership happen? Because that's really what it's all about. Back to my passion, my North Star. And I get to do it at a national level now, which I would have never guessed. So I think that's most exciting for CMLS next is April 13th, the next on the docket.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And, congratulations to you. You really are so inspirational and you have come so far. And I think it just speaks to all the girl power that you have. So I've been so honored to have you on this call. But the last pop quiz question I have for you is best show on television right now.
Oh, goodness sakes alive. Okay. Oh my gosh, there's too many of that. One I just is actually on Netflix. I don't know what's considered on TV right now, but I did just finish Netflix episode Made.
Mm-hmm.
If to say that one, I really enjoyed that one, but I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the one I just finished. So
You just finished and you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. Yes, I did. So
awesome. Yeah, what is considered on TV anymore? I don't even know. I guess you have to account for streaming services. And is there even I don't even know if there's even on TV anymore. I guess sometimes I just put on whatever, but it's all streamed.
It's like YouTube TV or Netflix or Prime Video. Like, where am I going with this question?
Right.
Options.
Well, thank you again. This has been a wonderful episode of the Renew podcast presented by RentSpree, and I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. As a reminder, you can visit our website, rentspree.com/renew, to learn more about how to join our initiative. And please subscribe to the Renew podcast on whatever pod platform you use. Until next time, thanks, guys.